missing for over 2 centuries. Did another Earthship once probe out of the galaxy as we
I'm working!
What happened to it out there? Is this some warning they've left behind?
This is work!
Your move, Captain. Should have intercepted by now. Bridge said they'd call. Oh, what irritation is?
I told you I'm working! Science fiction is a legitimate source for thinking about international politics. In fact, I'm going to prove it to you. Let's make a video!
No visual contact, Mr. Custer?
No, sir. Too small to be a vessel.
Hello and welcome to today's video, and in today's video I want to talk with you about how science fiction is one of the best sources for thinking about international politics. We've already established that to think about international politics involves an irreducible element of imagination. It involves the act of world building. Imagine that the world works like this. What stories can you tell within this world? How does this initial world-building principle help us to explain the world? Of course, that is precisely what people who come up with science fiction do. And I want to suggest that this genre of fiction can really help us in thinking through the problems of international politics. This goes both ways, as the writers of science fiction are often themselves inspired by real-life events in international politics. Ronald D. Moore was a writer and producer on Star Trek and on the TV series Battlestar Galactica. I was always interested in history and politics, says Moore. And in science fiction, you're writing big political operas, the histories of civilizations, how they got from here to there. Interstellar war always hangs in the background, so there are clashes of civilizations. I would draw on examples I'd studied, and I'd try to move the chess pieces around in a different way in order to see what would happen. Moore's co-writer on Battlestar Galactica, David Icke, added, "Both Ron and I were political science majors in college. If you went through our libraries, you wouldn't guess we're in show business." It was in the late 1970s that the literary theorist Darko Suvin gave us a definitive way to think about how science fiction speaks to our real world. Suvin said that science fiction was the literature of what he called cognitive estrangement. He says science fiction works by introducing a new thing into a world that's recognizable as similar to our own. The point of this new thing, whether it be replicants such as in Blade Runner, whether it be the Empire such as in Star Wars, whether it be androids or spaceships or any other science fiction device, the point of this new thing was not to provide an opportunity for fancy special effects. The point of this new thing was to get us to think about the real world in a new way. That's what Suvin meant by science fiction as being a cognitive literature, a thinking literature. The estrangement part of cognitive estrangement was Suvin suggesting to us that science fiction puts us a step removed from our experience of the real world. By introducing a strange new thing into an otherwise familiar picture, we're compelled to think about how our world works, to think about which parts of it are good, which parts of it are bad, which parts are inevitable, and which parts could readily change. Most crucially, Suvin argued, science fiction is thinking through the implications of new developments and new technology on human society. It's the humans that are the central part of science fiction, not the fancy spaceships and technological gadgets. Science fiction can do 5 main things for us, and each one of these is really helpful in thinking about international politics. First, science fiction can critique our world and give us a warning about where we may be going if we don't change things. By exaggerating an element of our current politics or our current society, and perhaps taking it to its logical conclusion, a science fiction that's functioning as a warning can tell us to change the direction in which we're going. Consider the world of Blade Runner. In the world of Blade Runner, humanity has created replicants, essentially new artificial life, and has enslaved them and treated them terribly. The humans in this Blade Runner world are debased creatures. They're living on a polluted earth, and they're having to confront what they've done in creating new life and enslaving that life. It's a world where humanity has lost its way, where our environment is polluted. It's a critique of things we do in our current society, and a warning about where we might be going if we don't get our act together. Similarly, Margaret Atwood, the author of The Handmaid's Tale, has been clear that she wrote her original novel at a time when she believed that patriarchy and religious fundamentalism was in danger of overrunning the United States. The second thing science fiction can do is to function as a source of analogies for helping us better understand things that have happened or are happening in our own world. By portraying, for example, an interstellar war in a science fiction show, science fiction can help us to understand the dynamics of war on our own world. This was something George Lucas had very much in the front of his mind when he came up with the idea for Star Wars. When Lucas wrote Star Wars in the late 1970s, he was thinking about the US conflict in Vietnam. Closely related to this idea of science fiction as providing analogical ways to think about real events in our world is the idea that science fiction provides us with counterfactuals. A counterfactual thought experiment is a reimagining of a major historical event as if it went somewhat differently. When we change what happened at a pivotal historical event, we're admitting that our world is one of contingency, that things didn't necessarily need to work out the way that they did. Think about the current TV series For All Mankind. For All Mankind posits a world in which the Soviet Union beat the United States to be the first nation to put a person on the moon. How would that have changed not only the space race, but the whole history of the Cold War? The fourth way that science fiction might be able to help us in thinking through international politics is by providing a safe space. Controversial or difficult ideas can be explored in fictional universe with a little less heat and maybe a little more light. Mary McDonnell, who played President Laura Roslin on Battlestar Galactica, thinks this is a key thing science fiction can do for us. She told an interviewer, "The show allows people to see the situation we are in presently completely honestly. The science fiction aspect of it gives us a little distance, and one has a little more courage to interact with the ideas." Ronald D. Moore, the creator of Battlestar, agreed. He said, "You can get away with a lot of things that you can't touch in contemporary reality shows. A lot of the issues we deal with in Galactica, like liberty and freedom, the war on terrorism, torture of prisoners, religion and faith, these are very charged, hot-button issues when presented in a drama where you're calling them all by their proper names. The networks all kind of pull back, and you have to present things in a balanced way or people get upset. But if you're in Star Trek or Battlestar Galactica and you're talking about the Klingons or the Cylons, you're talking about things cloaked in metaphor. You're talking about thematic ideas so you can just explore and not get bogged down." The final thing science fiction can do for us is to act as a source of hope. By showing us a future that is better than today, we can have confidence that we can make it through our present difficulties and build a better world. A science fiction that shows a technologically advanced humanity that has perhaps overcome climate change, that has perhaps managed to settle other worlds, would be a great source of solace in the current times. This was the central motivation of Gene Roddenberry, the Star Trek creator. Roddenberry was a great humanist, and he had profound faith in the goodness of people. "I believe in humanity," he said. "We're an incredible species. We're still just a child creature. We're still being nasty to each other. All children go through these phases. But we're growing up," Roddenberry thought. "We're moving into adolescence now. When we grow up, man, we're going to be something." So there's 5 ways that science fiction can help us in thinking about international politics. And now it's time to get into some specific theories. But not right now. I've got some TV to watch, so I'll see you next time.